Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan Desai with Northern Atlantic Hyperloop, and I'm going to be talking with you a little bit tonight about our entry in the SpaceX Hyperloop pod design competition, what the Hyperloop is, and what we hope to accomplish going forward. Maybe you can't really read this. I'm not sure that I can. But Hyperloop, okay, what does it mean? All right, loop is a circle. Hyper means to take anything in another direction, so a Hyperloop is just a tube. So it refers to a usually partially evacuated tube with a vehicle known as the pod that travels through it. Now, the original idea is almost 200 years old. It was patented by George Medhurst in 1812 on a paper about how to transport things and people by the power and velocity of air, as he put it. So from 1863 to 1874, there actually was a kind of small-scale prototype, not unlike what we're developing now, operating under the streets of London, which carried mail, light freight, and the occasional passenger, including the Duke of Buckingham on one occasion. Nikola Tesla designed, like he designed pretty much everything else you can think of, a prototype system involving a tube which would run from Europe to America using water pressure. This was probably just slightly ahead of its time even for Tesla. And in 1895, Michael Verne wrote an Express de l'Avenir, or an Express of the Future, which described a transatlantic tube going from Boston to Liverpool, England. So this idea has kind of dormant for a very long time until in 2013, Elon Musk revived it with the Hyperloop Alpha paper, which was the motivation for all the current activity in the field. And in 2015, SpaceX sponsored an open competition to design a transport vehicle for the Hyperloop. This was an open competition with 124 student teams and a handful of independent engineering teams, of which we were one, that were invited to present their designs. So there were build teams, full pod design teams, and subsystem teams. We entered a design in the subsystem category for a propulsion and suspension system, but with the competition over, we are actively researching a complete pod design. You will see what our entry was about. It was a propulsion and suspension, also known as levitation, designed based upon a performance model developed in Simulink. And on the next slide, you can see what we developed was this powered lift unit. It has wheels that run on the central rail, which was a given of the competition for stability. And it uses 4 ArcPax hover engines, which is proprietary technology developed at ArcPax in California. Now, on the next slide, you'll see how we were able to model our project in MATLAB and Simulink. We have a complete system model, which is also displayed in a little more detail on our presentation board there. And we were able to model the performance of the Hyperloop here in braking in different air pressures, for example. And on the next slide, this is what our endeavor is about. So we are a lean bootstrap startup. We're definitely in stage 0 of financing. We're looking to go forward from there. People often ask, what problem does your endeavor solve? Well, the Hyperloop doesn't just solve problems, it creates them. It's a disruptive technology. Part of what we want to do is to solve some of the problems that are created. So we want to partner with universities and industry to develop technology, systems, and infrastructure to build up the Hyperloop ecosystem. And on the next slide, you can see that this could be the next moonshot. At Texas A&M, they hosted the first Hyperloop design weekend, and the Secretary of Transportation said, in fact, that the Hyperloop could be the next moonshot. Next slide, please. What does Boston have to do with this? So far, this has been mostly a West Coast endeavor. But if you remember, back in 1895, Michael Verne located the eastern terminus of his pneumatic tube in Boston. And finally, we're looking for anyone who wants to come fly with us. We're actively recruiting sponsors, partners, and team members. And there you have it. And I'd like to open the floor to questions. Anyone?
So you mentioned early on that you have wheels underneath.
Yes, sir.
Versus like in Asia where it's maglev type of
Correct.
technology. Why?
The wheels are developed included more for the competition because the competition provided that guide rail. I believe what they were, and that was controversial actually early on with the competition. I believe they were trying to add a kind of margin of safety and failure tolerance. My guess is that probably in a full-scale system, the wheels and rail will go away, at least mostly. Anyone else? Ma'am?
What speeds would that be going at?
Well, it really depends. So for the competition, they were based it on the idea of a 1 mile track. So the speed that you could the maximum speed would be limited by the distance. Our design, I believe, maxed out at about Mach 0.07, or about the speed of a commercial airliner. It would be possible to get pods going at much faster speeds, depending on the aerodynamics, depending on the tube diameter, which is a big issue to avoid something known as the pistoning effect, and depending on the type of propulsion.
Explain pistoning effect.
Okay, the pistoning effect. If anybody has ever been through the East River Tunnel in a nacelle, you'll know what it means. It's when your ears pop when you're going into a tunnel at high speed or out of a tunnel at high speed. The problem here, where you have a sealed tunnel, you have a vehicle going through it. Even though most of the air has been removed, that air that the pod is pushing has to go somewhere. So that limits speed and puts certain parameters on the design of the pod and the tube. Yes, sir.
Based on your experience at the competition, how fast do you think this technology is going to be a reality?
Well, Brogan Van Brogan, who is the CEO of Hyperloop Technologies in Los Angeles, was just at the World Government Summit in Dubai, and he said that he can have an operating system operating within the next 5 to 6 years. So I think that's the time frame that both Hyperloop Technologies and a lot of other endeavors, including ours, would like to see something get started. Yes, sir.
Where are they plans to build the first one?
That's really an open question. There's kind of a race right now. So you have SpaceX, Hawthorne, California. You have Van Brogan, Hyperloop Technologies endeavor. They're looking at a test track in Nevada, possible container port offload system in Los Angeles, and they've also talked about the first passenger Hyperloop possibly being built between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Anyone else? Yes? No? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.